Alright ladies, welcome to your 18th mother effin tutorial, and in this video we're going to be working on this search bar at the top. The bar that allows you to search. How awesome is that? So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and create a div for the search bar. Now in the main CSS we already named this div top search. Pretty much this is the area where we need to put it. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Div, give it the ID equals top search. And if we go ahead and take a close look at the search bar, we can see a couple things. This isn't any ordinary search bar. This is actually a form with three elements. It has an input section for typing in your keywords. It has a drop-down menu for refining your search, selecting your category. Maybe I want to search for books, Hunger Games. And it also has a third search or submit button that just says search on it. So basically an input, a drop down menu, and a button. So since this is a form, we of course need to go ahead and make a form right here. Now the form name, let's just go ahead and name it input. Now for the action, what this is going to do is anytime we submit this form, we want to take the user to a search page, and that's where our script is going to run. So our script is on search PHP, and maybe we'll code that next, maybe we won't, who knows. And the method of this is actually get. I keep hitting freaking shift on my keyboard. If I hit it one more time, I'm going to drop kick my keyboard. I swear I will. So like I said, this form has three elements: an input, a drop-down menu, and a button. So let's go ahead and work on the first element first, which is the input section where they input their keywords. Now, the type of data for this is of course just regular text that they can search for. Now for the ID, let's just go ahead and give it an ID. Oh my god, are you freaking kidding me? Give it an ID of keywords. And it also is going to have a name of keywords. ID equals keywords, name equals keywords. Now, how big do we want this box to be? Well, I already figured this out, and if I put its size 100, then it's going to look pretty darn pretty. So let's go ahead and give this a size of 100. And that's going to make sure it fits nicely across our website. Now the last couple things we need to do is we need to say, okay, what class CSS wise do you want to belong to? Well, we already made a class called searchbox, and what this does is it pretty much just gives it a nice padding, and whenever the user types in text, it colors it to a nice gray color. And aside from this, the very last thing that we need to do is whenever you have an input, not only on this form, but on any form in HTML, you can have a default value. Now, whenever you have a default value for an input, before the user even types in anything, that's the value that appears in that form. So the default value in this case, what we want it to be is whatever the user's last search term was. So if you remember up here, we stored their last search term in a variable called default text. So now all we have to do is we need to set the default value for this form equal to default text. Now this is the code that right here that makes their last search term in conjunction with this equal to the default value for the form. Pretty awesome, huh? Now the only other minor thing I want to do after this is I want to add a non-breaking space. Now all this does is it gives you one more space between this element and this element because I just think it looks a little bit better. Now our input section is done. We referenced it correctly. Whenever we code it in PHP, we just have to name it keywords and we'll be good to go. Now after this, we need our drop-down menu. Our menu that's going to be responsible for pretty much all of the categories whenever the user wants to refine their search. Okay, I want to look for Hunger Games, but do I want to look in all categories? Do I want to look in, I don't know, like sports memorabilia? What the heck do I want to look Hunger Games under? So the first thing that we need to do is we need to make a drop-down menu. Now in order to do this in HTML, you make a select form and you give it the ID. You can actually give it whatever ID you want, but I'm going to name mine category. I think that's appropriate since we're selecting categories. Now I also want to give it a name of category, just like that. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm also going to go ahead and give it the search box class. And what this is going to do is whenever you have this drop down right here, it's going to give the text a nice, I don't even know if you can tell this from YouTube, but it's not black. It's kind of like a nice gray, and also a little bit of padding just so it blends in with the rest of the website. So pretty much this is going to have the same look as the other form elements. Now after this, check it out. Let me go ahead and take a deep breath because I'm going to need to explain some things. Whenever you make a drop-down menu in HTML, what you do is you make two select tags and you put all your options in between those select tags. However, I just don't want a I shouldn't say hardcore. I just don't want to write the options right here because what if we decide that, you know what, we actually need another category? Well, then we're going to have to go back, and anytime we wrote all the categories on our website, whether it's the drop down menu or on the left hand side right here, we're going to need to change it in every single location. Kind of a pain, right? Well, it would be. However, that's not how we're going to create our website. We're smarter than that. What we are going to do is we're going to create a list of categories one time, and we're just going to include that whenever we need it. So let's just go ahead, and we won't make the function right now, but we'll add a comment to include categories here. And that way, our categories are going to be so much easier to maintain. We only have to change them in one location in one little bit of code, and then they update across our entire website. Pretty sweet, huh? So the last thing I want to do for this tutorial is just make an echo statement, pretty much closing everything out. So the first thing that we need to do is close our select tag. Select, and probably need to add the proper closing tag. And after this, let's go ahead and remember this. In our form, there were three elements. There was an input section, there was a drop-down menu, and the last thing was a button to pretty much search for your results, submit the form. So let's go ahead and code that button right now before closing out our form. So let's go ahead and put input. Now in order to make a button, the type equals submit. The value whenever you're making a button is what text do you want to appear on the button. I'm just going to go ahead and say search, and the class, we already styled a class called button. Remember in main CSS, this huge thing right here, that is the button looks, so yep, we do not have to do that again. So basically, there you go. We pretty much created a form with our input section, our drop down menu, even though we didn't make our categories yet, and also the button that submits the form. So the last thing that we need to do is close out the form and also close out this last div. Now, before I let you guys go, I want to mention this because a lot of you guys are probably going to ask me questions about this. You're saying, how do you know when to use single quotation marks and how do you know when to use double quotation marks? And I'm going to be talking about this for the rest of this tutorial, so if you guys know, then just go ahead and watch the next video. I'll see you then. But for those of you guys who don't know when to use single quotation marks and when to use double quotation marks, in PHP, whenever you use single quotation marks, it takes everything in here and it just prints it out as is on the screen. Whenever you use double quotation marks, what it does is it looks for any variables or any values that it can interpret in between before printing it out on the screen. So since we just have plain old HTML in here with no values, I can just go ahead and use single quotation marks. However, in here, when we do something dynamic, which is use this variable, we don't want the variable $ default text printed out on the screen. We actually want the variable to be interpreted. Go ahead and grab their keywords and then print it out. So whenever we have, variables or something to use double quotation marks. Whenever you just have HTML, use single quotation marks. Anything you don't need interpreted. So there you go, there you have it. In the next tutorial, we're going to be creating these links and also the categories. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, although I'm guessing you probably already are. And I'll see you guys in the next video.